Hey, Stoney here with another game of Mechabellum, and in this game we're going to take a look at the dynamics between the mountain and the abyss. Alright, at the bottom here I am playing as a supply specialist, and my opponent is a fortify specialist. Whenever I start with Hound Ball, I just put him into an asymmetrical aggro position. Now I noticed that my opponent started with Sabertooth Hound, and I figured the best option is probably just to go with Void Eyes. There's a few options. One is the Ag Crawlers. So Crawlers will provide a little bit of tanking and hopefully allow some of these steel balls to lock onto the Sabertooth. But in this case, I was hoping that my opponent, because the 3 squad of hounds are they're sufficient to deal with 2 squads of crawlers. What I'm really worried about is I have no damage to take down the Sabertooth. So adding the Void Eyes can actually do pretty good work. Now, my opponent also added Void Eyes, and they do counter the Steel Ball somewhat, at least tying them up. So that's a great choice. The Void Eyes right now do not one-hit a fortified Hound. So that is something of a breakpoint. If you do want to invest heavier into Void Eyes, you might want to consider taking that +1 attack early, so that way you can get rid of this Hound. For me, for now, I just want to see what my opponent does. And in this case, he went for the Void Eyes, so there is a signal for me to go into that +1. Alright, get into round 2. We've got a round of abilities. Mobile Beacon is pretty interesting. When you're playing aggro, your opponent tends to stack on the same side that you aggroing into. So a Mobile Beacon at 50 is going to allow you to do some pretty cheeky stuff. And it seems like we both have the same idea. Alright, Mustangs. Mustangs are interesting for round 2. This is kind of old school because usually the counter to Sabertooth Hound at round 2 is just Phoenixes. So having Mustangs, my opponent preemptively prepares for those Phoenixes, except I'm not going Phoenixes right now. Instead, I just needed some chaff. So triple squad of crawlers with the last crawler on a Mobile Beacon towards the tower. One great thing about having Mustangs early on is, of course, you get to level them a little bit, but also notice how this round ends, right? It started with my opponent's Hound Saber clashing into my Hound Ball, but once all of my Hounds disappear, my opponent's board turned into a classic Saber Stand. And Saber Stand is a very self-sufficient board. It has, you know, big tanky units like the Saber to hit hard. And then we also have these chaff clear slash chaff type of unit, which is the Mustangs. And not to mention they have anti-air capabilities. So it's a very self-sufficient composition. Alright, we got a line of tanky unit options. For me, I think I needed damage. And that leaves me between a Scorpion and a Melting Point. I wouldn't recommend a Melting Point when you're headbutting. So by headbutting, I mean the army are fighting within like the first second. Having the Scorpion gives you that burst damage, which allows you to take down these heavy Sabertooth a lot more efficiently. Problem with Melting Point is that even though they'll eventually take down a Sabertooth, but if there's nothing between the Saber and the Melting Point and the Saber has double shot, you have a pretty good chance of losing your Melting Point and that Saber just scales. So having the Scorpion prevents that. There was some hesitation. You notice I first took range on the Scorpion and now I've decided to take it off and instead putting range on the Hounds. And the reason I did that is because I realized the end game my opponent was going for, which is the Saber Stand, and I needed these Hounds to survive a little bit longer. And in order to do that, I need to force the Scorpions to move slightly ahead of these Hounds. So right now with range, the Hounds shoot at 110, Scorpions shoot at 100, which means these two big guys, they're going to be aggroing my Scorpions, which is fine. My Scorpions are tanky enough to take the punishment. I just needed my Hounds to survive to deal with the Mustangs. Alright, cheeky Rhino here for my opponent. Also, I got some cheeky crawlers here as well. I wonder if I can trigger... no dice. I don't think... Oh, there it is. Ah, 50. 50 free money. Yes, pretty good. Alright. At the front here, I seem to have a bit of a chaff clear problem. My scorpions are not finding their marks. And that's unfortunate because that is going to allow the saber-tooths to farm the experience. And once they get to level 3, it becomes a little bit more scary. Alright, we got some options. Portable shield makes the most sense for me. I don't have units that have a lot of range or it takes time to get into the fight. So portable shield doubles the HP on this big scorpion. Yeah. And hopefully stops the farming from the saber-tooth and also farm a bit of experience on my own. I'll continue to add on more level 2 hounds and also a pair of steel balls in a vertical formation or vertical to the rhino. My opponent was a little hasty when putting down this rhino. I think a better position would just put the rhino a little bit behind, leaving 2 squares at the front. So that way, if I want to directly counter with steel balls, he can just add crawlers, which will either force another response with some sort of chaff clear or missile. It's just extra annoying with this rhino crawler comp. But in this case, since he put it on the line at the flank, the steel ball will do just fine. And these are both 200 cost units, and the steel balls will survive almost fully intact, and then we'll be able to have them back into the battle. The mobile beacon right here, the intent was to augment my chaff line. My opponent right now has a better chaff line. He has wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and I only have 2 waves. So I'm artificially creating a 3rd wave by mobile beaconing these crawlers. The hounds are doing work though, and they are farming a little bit as well, which I like. But on the other side, like, units are seemingly collapsing onto my army. However, the chaff line has depleted, which means the scorpion can now shoot at the right targets, and I did have a scorpion survive as well. Okay, no level on neither of them, which is sad, but soon, next turn, I think they should level. A level 2 scorpion has a lot of utility because if you need, you can always take double shot, and a double shot can dispatch these saber-tooth very quickly. Alright, we got some unit options here. Phoenix or Marksman, these are kind of a no-brainer for me. I don't need additional chaff clear in the form of Typhoons. It's not, especially not against Sabertooth. And with Wasps, my opponent already have Mustangs, so that's not a great option as well. I took the Phoenixes because I didn't need more single target damage. I'd rather have extra bodies. And also Phoenix has the additional benefit of being an air unit. So if we have like a late game where it's just between the Hounds and the Mustangs, the Phoenixes can help the Hounds snipe off some of these larger units, and then the Hounds can snipe off the Mustangs. All right, we're going to put Phoenixes behind the tower precisely to prevent cheese like this one. And we're setting up a little bit of a flank as well. We're trying to disrupt my opponent's chaff line as much as we can. So here we're disrupting wave number 3. So there's a little gap where we can start shooting or at least locking onto the Sabertooth. Okay, my opponent sold the Rhino, realizing this is a futile aggression, so no more Rhino. And he also picked the Phoenixes, which is surprising. I would have expected him to pick the Wasps because I really don't have any anti-air swarm units. I don't have Mustangs. I don't want to buy Mustangs, and I just wanted to level up this Hound. Eventually, if there's too much of a problem in the air, then I will respond. But for now, my core comp has just been Hound and Scorpions, and it's not working well for me this turn. I think the big problem is that his Mustang, not Mustang, his hounds have been leveling, and because he still has the superior chaff line, it was actually getting onto my hounds. Underground and intensive are both interesting. I think intensive would be the better option for me because I am scaling these hounds as quickly as I can. We'll hit a point where these hounds are so high level, it becomes very difficult for my opponent's hound to scale. And they become so proficient at killing level 1 crawlers. So yes, I noticed there's a chaff clear problem, but I've decided, you know what? Let's just add more hounds. If we can survive one more turn, then we can take even more technology and adding more chaff. So far, I did take the additional technology, and now I am 1 tech ahead of my opponent's hounds. And these guys, they do hit really hard. And especially the hounds in the corner here, with mech rage and range, these guys can single-handedly take care of pretty much all of these. Probably not the underground, but if it's just the Mustangs and the crawler, these hounds will actually win. Alright, we're moving the crawler back a little bit. I want to tank with the scorpion, and now I took armor. Now, before we talk about armor, let's just address the mountain in the room. My opponent noticed my lack of chaff, and he decided to say, hey, I know your chaff clear is great, but what about a huge tank? And what about we're making all of you units stuck on that huge tank? And I think that's a great idea. For me, on my side, I took armor. Armor is an extremely cheap 100 cost technology. It is quite underused. It increases the HP by 50%, and of course it provides the armor benefit, which negates damage or 60 damage per level, which means if my Scorpion survives at the very end, they can actually single-handedly tank these Mustangs. So not too shabby. But for me, I'm really after the armor aspect. Not the armor, the HP aspect of the armor technology. Alright, it looks like we're actually going to win after all, despite the fact that it was a very surprising mountain. There's simply not enough chaff clear, right? This is where the turning point starts to happen. But the mountain is a problem though, because the mountain, he has the mountain plating, which means if he clicks on that, everything here except the Phoenix and the Scorpion, everything else, let's see, the Void Eye. Well, I guess the Void Eye can pierce through a level 2 mountain plating. I mean, it blocks 1400 damage, so that's kind of a ridiculous amount of blockage. So eventually we will need to have some type of answer against this mountain. So what is the answer? Now, first of all, we have to be aware that there was a drop for mobilized battleship. I was thinking where that might be. I was looking around the board. I think being the center might be pretty likely. Being here, I think the battleship is going to try to follow these crawlers a little bit. Being here, maybe. Anyways, I needed to make sure that I don't immediately die to this level 2 mountain. So I, actually spent all my money on an Abyss. On paper, the Abyss is a great counter to the mountain that does not have mountain plating. Because mountain is a 7x7 unit, and the way that the Abyss attack works is that kind of sweeps through an area. So the bigger the unit, the more ticks that the Abyss will do, and faster it will bring it down. That's why the Abyss are typically used against giants. Alright, so my opponent actually got his boat on this corner, and they were being dispatched by these level 2 and now level 3 Phoenixes. We're struggling a little bit in the right hand side despite the Abyss here. I think it's more of a chaff clear problem. I lost all my hounds, so now things are shooting at the wrong things. But I still have Phoenixes left over. I still have a level 2 Scorpion left over, and now I got Tower. Maybe there's an opportunity here. Let's see. Oh no, the Phoenix is sniped. Uh-oh. 1200. Okay, I'll survive this round. But it's not looking too good. Alright, down to 500. Alright, a lot of tempting options. Melting Point sometimes feels like a trap against the mountain. You might say, oh, well, Melting Point is the killer for all giants. You're not wrong. But the thing with Mountain is that it's really freaking tanky. And it does a lot of damage once you lock on. So we're headbutting here. And the Melting Point does not have a lot of wiggle room. Now, the Vulcan might actually do a little bit more damage. At the very least, it will attract aggro from the hounds, giving my hounds some opportunity to deal damage. There's also oil on the ground. I'm actually surprised that my opponent didn't take Vulcan and just light up the oil. I guess the benefit of slow is better than just burning some of my hounds off. Alright, what did he pick? Okay, he picked the level 4 marksman and now with AA. This is a pretty good pick because the problem with mountains is, well, of course, it has no real anti-air. It does have a... It's funny because now that I noticed, he runs the anti-air technology. I don't run it. I don't believe the anti-air technology. I think the sacrifice of the 50% attack is just a little too great. For me, the mountain does one of two things. Is either super long range support with the extended range and the back line, or it's just a front line tank. Very similar to a Quarter War Factory. Alright. Wow, these marksmen, they hurt. Level 2 Abyss, and they are already bringing it down to a third of HP. Can this Abyss even kill this mountain? I don't think so. Yeah, no killing on that mountain there. And if I can't kill this mountain, and if that's like some other stuff left over, I'm dead this round. But fortunately, the scorpions are coming through, and this one is now going to become level 3. And I still have a single Abyss left over. Alright, now I just need to survive, because eventually I think the Abyss can do a significant amount of damage to the mountain simply because of his hitbox. But now things are getting a little bit hairy because I'm one turn away from dying. So I need to make sure whatever I do, I survive. Here are 2 temple cards, Mobilized Battleship and Orbital. I don't think my opponent is going to try to mobilize Battleship again. Javelin feels more relevant. And Javelin also feels good for me because here's a very juicy Jav. So if my opponent reads the board, he might want to start moving these units away. I'm surprised that I didn't get to ignite the oil last turn. I think the Vulcan just died too quickly to a single volley of the mountain. Wait, speaking of the mountain, it disappeared. Alright, so my opponent sold the mountain. It's going to reposition it somewhere else. And I took double tech on the Abyss. And my opponent took the anti-aircraft ammunition. So, ooh, and that's going to hit directly at this level 1 Abyss. So 90,000 HP. The mountain shoots 4 times at 8,000. So that's like 32,000 every 2 seconds. So 3 shots or 3 volleys. He should be able to kill this Abyss. And not to mention, there's really literally nothing on this side. There's like no chaff on this side whatsoever. So this mountain is going to have a heyday with all my units here. The Swarm Missile is a direct answer to the AA Marksman. Ooh, look at the damage. 2 and 3. 4, and there goes. There goes a dead Abyss. But that's okay though, because my opponent mobile beacon the marksman backward, which means now the Abyss will actually have the ability to snipe a tower. And then the other tech last turn I took was the range. The range was also for the AA marksman because it gives the Abyss some opportunities to stay alive and get more missile volleys. But the mountain with AA is kind of scary. Not gonna lie. Normally, because I don't run AA, so normally when I see Abyss, my number one concern is to protect the marksman or protect the Phoenix. Because once they're done, then there's nothing to kill the Abyss. But in this case, the AA, it makes the mountain a little bit more self-sufficient. Mobilized battleship is offered again. I think this was offered like 3 times this turn. I can't remember. Was this... Oh, mobilized battleship is not one of those technologies you only get to use once. So it just keep offering them. Like imagine you take a 3 mobilized battleship and every turn you just get free battleship. That's pretty sweet. And also expensive. Alright, so we got 3 Abyss. I repositioned the one at the front so it doesn't get insta-locked on. And also added a squad of fans for chaff. One of the Abyss is now level 3. So at level 3, the missiles deal 1500. What level 3? 1650 per missile, and it shoots 46 missiles. So that's significant amount of damage just for the missiles alone, and not to mention the swipe. Right? Every time I swipe, it does like 13k, and that's per like 0.1 tick or 0.2 tick, second of a tick. All right. So we got underground here. This underground is mostly here to distract my units, but I'm not too worried. We do have high level hounds and they clear pretty fast. My opponent took the subterranean blitz. Subterranean blitz reduces the damage by 55%, which means the hound a level 3, that's 800. So when they're underground, where's my crawler at? I can't even see a crawler. Here's a crawler. We'll still one-shot them, even if they're underground. So it doesn't make too much of a difference. I don't run Mustangs. I think the subterranean is most detrimental to units like Mustangs or Fangs. But with the hounds, I think they're okay. And here you see the power of the Abyss. Just a tremendous amount of damage. Not even scared of this level 3 mounting. I mean, yes, it's got the anti-air technology, but not scared of it at all. And that's game. So I think the theme of this game is survival. If you can survive to the point that you get your Abyss lined up against the mountain, I think you have a pretty good chance. Abyss is just so damn good at a late round chaff clear because of his missile capabilities. These triple marksmen, I don't believe was getting that much value. I think the last round, yeah, they kind of get like a shot and a half, and this guy didn't even get a full shot in. The missile just kills them too quickly. If I were my opponent in the final round, what would I do? That's a tough one because you really need something against the high-level Abyss with range. Even Melting Point here feels like a struggle because right now the Abyss has same range as the Melting Point. So you really kind of needed something a couple rounds ago. Now it just becomes a little bit out of control. You could try some type of EM. So let's say you can do like EM Phoenixes. But then at that point, why don't you just go charge shot range Phoenixes and then just keep a bunch of stuff on the ground, right? Charge shot actually deal okay into the Abyss as long as you have stuff in front of them. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this game, and if you want to see another one, here is one for you, and I will see you on the next one.
Prepare your tactics, Mechabellum's calling. Deploy your fortress, the battlefield's alive with swarms.